Welcome back to True Crime and Headlines with Jules and Joe. We're proudly produced by a women-owned company, Anley Audio House, LLC. I'm Jules.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm a former education professional.
And I am a mental health professional.
And together, our goal is to bring awareness to stories which we think you should know. We are based out of Middle Tennessee, and we're going to continue with episode 8, part 2. So if you've not listened to episode 8, part 1, please go back and do so. This is part 2 of 3. Today, Joe, as promised at the end of part 1, I'm going to dive into missing evidence, forensic analysis on Grant's truck, and then we'll begin to dive into the allegations of sexual abuse made by Grant Solomon's younger sister, Gracie Solomon, against their father, Aaron Solomon.
Okay.
You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Meet me back in Middle Tennessee. We'll be right back. Now go a little closer into Sumner County and go to the city Gallatin, to be exact. Now go back to July 20th, 2020. Grant's Life 360 app shows that Grant's location was not tracked by the GPS app to go any farther than the ditch where Grant was found under his truck. I wish I could find out exactly how accurate the Life 360 app is, because we are talking a matter of 20 or I guess it could be through 60 feet from where his truck was in the ditch to the top of the parking lot where Aaron claims that they had parked and where Aaron claims that Grant's truck originally rolled backwards. And if this app is correct, it does indicate that Grant's cell phone never made it up to the parking lot. It never pulled in next to his father, Aaron Solomon, per Aaron's testimony of that day. And that would mean that Grant's car never rolled back. And that would indicate foul play. It's important to note that there was absolutely no visible evidence of any blood in the parking lot.
That is really interesting that there was no blood in the parking lot on the way down.
Yeah, because he was what?
Was it that there was no blood? Allegedly. Or was it that they didn't notify or indicate blood?
There was no blood observed at the scene of the accident per the police report. And the photos taken showed no blood. And the photos taken of the truck in the ditch showed a rock with blood on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. There's a lot of okays.
Absolutely. Like, was there just negligence in the reporting and it just wasn't noted? Or did they actually know no blood observed?
I think you could argue either way.
I need details.
I also believe that they did not see any blood in the parking lot. So they did not report any blood in the parking lot. I think they saw that there was blood near the rocks where Grant was lying under the truck. And since they quickly believed Aaron Solomon's story and the story of the accident, quote unquote, I do think that they just accepted it, that it was, I think they thought it was conducive to the story that Aaron told.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have to talk all angles here. So perhaps the app didn't track Grant's phone to the top. Maybe the app stopped at the driveway, the entranceway of the parking lot.
Right.
It is suspicious that it stopped at the exact spot where Grant had to be rescued by EMS. But it is going off of a road, a public road, onto a private property. Now, I don't know if Life 360 will show access onto private properties. I'm assuming it does, because then you have other properties such as shopping centers and things like that that have massive parking lots, and you can see where cars go in through there.
Yeah.
But these are definitely questions that should be asked. And should have already been asked. However, were they asked? Absolutely not.
Okay.
So I wish I could find out the accuracy of this, but I wasn't able to. And just given the time constraints and the level of my skills is not there. But on the flip side, if the app was tracking correctly, let's assume Grant did make it to the top and Aaron's account of them being in their own cars side by side is true. That means Grant tossed or dropped his phone out of his truck before he went up the hill. So if Life 360 is accurate and would show traveling up the driveway in the parking lot, and what Aaron is saying is true, then that would mean either Grant threw his phone out, it fell out, or cell service was not good, and that's the spot where it ended receiving GPS locations.
It's only a matter of 20, 40 feet, and so it wouldn't surprise me if it just didn't kind of zone in that far, but I don't know. It's outside my scope.
So his mother, Angie, and his girlfriend were also on the Life 360 app. So I think a very simple solution to answering this question would be to go up that driveway in the parking lot on Life's 360 app and see if it shows going up that driveway.
Right.
So let's just clear up some theories immediately by going over his cell phone data. And I wish I could, Joe. But Grant's cell phone was never recovered by police at the scene. In fact, the only items on record to be released to Grant's mother are from the hospital, and that was Grant's shoes and socks. Now, recall that these are the same shoes and socks that had 0 scuff marks on them. White socks. 0 scuff marks, 0 scratches. And not to be confused with his legs and arms, which also did not have any scratches on them after being allegedly dragged down.
Where's his phone?
Well, funny you should ask. I will touch on that in a second. So we only have Grant's Life 360 data because of, who was connected on the app with him. Now, I did look at the Life 360 company webpage, and on their site, they answer this question, is the Life 360 app accurate? And the website says this in response, quote, accuracy is determined in large part by the quality of your service and your device. And due to this, it is possible that some points during your trip might be missed or speeds captured may be inaccurate.
Okay.
So it will, the app will say, Grant is traveling on this road at 56 miles per hour. A lot of parents use this to track their kids' driving habits.
Yeah. So it's possible that he's in Gallatin, Tennessee. It's possible that it just didn't pick up.
We have information from Aaron himself per the 911 call that we heard in part 1 that he was looking down and checking his email. So that would indicate that Aaron Solomon had great service, unless he didn't and he was connected to the facility's Wi-Fi from the parking lot, which we don't know at this time. And remember, none of Aaron's story was actually corroborated past what he just reported verbally to police. Right. So there's that. However, per Aaron's account, he had just pulled up in the parking lot and was looking down at a work email. So I am led to believe that he was connected to the cell service and not on the facility's Wi-Fi. Now, you can connect automatically to Wi-Fi. If you had connected in the past and you still had their password, you can connect automatically. However, we are not sure if that was ever the case because, again, nothing was corroborated. And these are all questions which may seem trivial to answer or ask as well, but they're all little puzzle pieces that have to fit together for the big picture. Mm-hmm. We have to verify. We have to validate what people are saying. And that was not done. And that is what some of the uproar is about. Now, I did reach out to the family social media accounts that I've been talking with, and I asked which cell phone provider Grant had. And here's why I wanted to see what type of service he had. It's because I wanted to know in July of 2020, the coverage area map for the phone service that they had to answer the question of whether or not the GPS could be accurate. Now, granted that he had the app on his phone, it's a given he had a smartphone. And they did get back to me and they said he had a new iPhone and he had Sprint and it was on his mom's plan. So then that means, we don't know what plan his father, Aaron Solomon, had. Before this, I was like, oh, well, maybe his father is also the one on the plan, and that could answer the question of the service right there. But that's a big hole now as well.
Okay.
In last week's episode, part 1, I shared that Angie had her son's truck forensically tested by an independent company. Now, as a refresher, Angie was able to obtain ownership of the truck because Aaron Solomon had it deemed totaled by insurance.
So did she then go in and buy the truck? How'd she get it out of impound?
So listen to this. This is interesting because the truck was considered to only have acquired minimal damage on July 2020, the day of the accident, per Lincoln Ford, where Aaron took the truck on January 5th, 2021. So photos of Grant's truck will show that only visible damage is done to the rear bumper of the truck. And this is a detail which is said by police to prove Aaron's story, because the police say it would have crushed the bumper after sliding back into the ditch. Because if it rolled down the hill backwards and then it went up, it went down into the ditch, and then the bumper comes up, crashes into the other side of the ditch, and then falls forward. That's the story. And that's one of the reasons why they decided to close the case, the person on record. However, also in the police reports, when you look at the diagram, they incorrectly drew Grant's truck on the wrong side of the ditch. Like it's a little piece to show how thoroughly this was not investigated,
right,
or looked over. Freedom for Gracie website claims that most Toyota Tacoma bumpers are not made to withstand much, so they bring up a valid point. Since there were no scene photos taken until after Grant was transported to the hospital, could it have been the Gallatin Fire Department who accidentally moved the bumper when they were lifting the truck back upon it to remove Grant from under the truck? I mean, anything's possible. There's no proof that the bumper was not damaged before or after because there are no photos.
Right.
And according to the Freedom for Gracie website, they're saying how fragile Tacoma bumpers are.
So their argument is that it's possible that this didn't actually happen in the accident, whatever that might be, but rather when they were trying to manipulate the truck to get it out, that there was some there was damage done at that point.
Yes. So we got to dig into the truck forensics report. Now, I have read this report numerous times, and I've tried to piece together what many of the graphs mean as best as I could for everyone listening. Now, you had asked, how did Angie get the truck? I think we touched on it a little bit in part one, is Aaron Solomon had the truck declared totaled.
Just from that accident, not from further damage that happened after that.
Correct.
Okay. How did that happen? How did they get... There's minimal damage. How was it totaled?
Well, what they're claiming is insurance fraud. That somehow Mr. Solomon got an insurance company to say the truck was totaled and then impounded. And that would be insurance fraud, given the fact that truck had minimal damage per the place where he took it.
Okay. So how does mom get it now?
So they had the VIN numbers, and you can track the numbers from trucks that end, or cars that end up for auctions. And it was noted when it popped up for auction, and they were able to secure the truck, and she was able to get it back.
So she went and bought this bad boy from an auction.
And she had it hidden in a driveway, in a garage, which we talked about in part one, I believe. She had it hidden in someone's garage away from Aaron Solomon, so he would not know. And that's when she had it independently, forensically tested.
And what did it find?
So Stidham Reconstruction and Investigation, SRI, a private investigative and forensic reconstruction company, was hired by Angie to assess Grant's truck. And if you didn't know, technology today, it's pretty incredible for newer trucks especially. And a company like SRI can pull intricate data from the truck, kind of like the black box of the truck that records everything, your acceleration.
Yeah, right, yeah.
If your car was in drive,
I'm dying to hear.
If your seatbelt was on. So the company does such an incredibly detailed job going over everything from aerial photos of the facility to assessing road conditions. And according to the report, it says, quote, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration was checked for any recall data associated with the Toyota, specifically this vehicle identification number and the Toyota Tacoma pickup in general. The report generated and indicated there were 0 unrepaired recalls for the Solomon Toyota and 4 recalls that had been announced for the 2015 Toyota pickup in general. But what it said was that there were 0
for that specific truck.
Unrepaired, exactly, which would indicate ruling out the truck shifted gears on its own. And recall, Grant's truck was in park at the bottom.
I mean, I don't think it would rule that out, though. It would rule out that there was any known recall on it.
Correct. So what the company had it tested. And what they did is they put the car in reverse and tried to roll it back on a similar grade that was the grade of the parking lot. That's what it was. And they were not able to. And the amount of time of the car shifting into reverse and then it going back would be a lot of time. You have to rock the truck back and forth to purposely let it roll down, considering the grade that slope was at. Now, I bring all this up because we want to make sure that we bring all the evidence to the forefront, whether it will go in the direction we think it should or not. I mean, it needs to go in the direction of the truth, right? And whether the truth is Grant's death was an accident and not a homicide, they need to make sure we present the truth. And as you know, okay, there are no recalls on Grant's truck. They tried to roll it back and they couldn't. And here's an excerpt from the concluding results of the truck inspection. Quote, okay. I also checked the brake switch and park interlock solenoid operation, and both worked properly. We also tried to roll the vehicle back and forth while in the storage unit, shifting it in and out of park several times, and it worked perfectly each time. We also parked the vehicle on an uphill grade, approximately 3% grade, with vehicle running and shut off and had no issues with it moving. And they also did forensics on Grant's socks and shoes. Now, recall these were given to Angie as Grant's personal belongings at the hospital, and this is the concluding report. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Quote, items were provided to SRI that Grant Solomon was wearing at the time of the incident. These items included shoes, socks, a baseball cap, and rocks. SRI investigators performed Blue Star Forensics luminol blood enhancement reagent on these items to determine if blood was present on specific items at a characteristic where this type of evidence would or should be. The presence of bloodstain patterns were observable on the shoes and socks worn by Grant Solomon at the time of the incident. Due to the dynamics of this incident, there would be an expectation of bloodstain patterns on these items. Despite the observable bloodstain patterns, SRI chemically treated these areas with Blue Star to enhance blood that may not be observable with the naked eye. During the testing, blood was present on the shoes and socks, all of which would be characteristic that Mr. Solomon obtained injuries during this incident. So, they're saying it's not bizarre that he had blood on his socks and his shoes, although it was not evident to the naked eye. What I want to know is what type of splatter pattern. Was it a drip? Was it, you know how you can recreate splatter patterns and try to indicate was the individual lying down or standing up at the point?
Yeah, they didn't comment on that.
No, they didn't do further testing, and that's testing that can be done. And that's what should be done with an open investigation. You know, his only known open and bleeding wound was the back of his head, and then he started bleeding from the nose and the ears. And so if you say, let's say he got the back of the head blow from falling back, mm-hmm. Then they're saying that the blood splattered up. That it's just really confusing to me how a 6'4" 3 individual, how this all comes about, given the height of the car and the truck. And
it also makes me think too that it wasn't that there wasn't, I mean, on the flip side, that there wasn't blood in the parking lot or anywhere else, but that it wasn't noted.
Yeah, it was not tested. There was no, because it was not deemed a crime scene because they closed it within an hour of approaching the scene. Right. Yeah, there's chances of evidence to be found were gone. And here we are 3 years later. Mm-hmm. And this could have all been figured out if the police did their forensic investigation.
I mean, also giving Aaron Solomon justice if he's in fact not responsible for his child's death and doing a thorough investigation also lets this nightmare be over for him.
Exactly. And there are so many accusations against Aaron Solomon in so many different avenues and levels. And I think a big consensus from what I'm reading is that Aaron was not a good guy, from what a lot of people are saying. But that doesn't mean, on the flip side, that doesn't mean that he killed his son.
No.
Can he
Just
be a
seems
shady?
like gross negligence. Like, you can't say for certain either way because nothing was noted in the documentation.
Well, let's circle back to Grant's cell phone. You had asked about that.
Yeah.
So Aaron wanted to collect the items. The police didn't collect anything. The truck was taken and towed, and items of Grant's were left in the ditch. At this point, Aaron was excused to go to the hospital, so no one was there to collect his items from the family. Well, where's the cell phone? Grant's girlfriend, Hannah, and Grant's mother, Angie, were both, obviously, we said on Grant's Life 360 account, so they were able to see movement on Grant's cell phone after Grant died. And according to Hannah, the app showed Grant's cell phone moving around Gallatin. And when Hannah told this to Aaron, he said, don't worry about it. He was going to take care of it. Angie wanted to call the police. Aaron gets the phone then. And how? Well, let's hear it from Aaron himself. In his own words, how he was able to recover Grant's cell phone, as retold to everybody, while he's standing up at Grant's funeral in front of everybody, bringing this up. So this is part of the audio from Aaron Selman's eulogy of his son, Grant. And I think it's really important for you to hear this part from his own words. You ready?
I'm not sure.
All right.
After the accident scene was cleared Monday, a man was looking around the scene and found Grant's cell phone, his GCA baseball hat, and what's left of the sports goggles he was wearing. Ironically, this man just happens to know one of my best friends, Lee, and gets my number from Lee, texts me to know that he has Grant's things and he wants them returned to his family. This man is 55, 56 years old, admits to Lee that he has never in his life been a believer, ever. Had done a couple things in his life and lived rough, just didn't believe. But he tells Lee, what happened to Grant Monday has affected him so deeply that he's a believer now.
You look very perplexed.
I just don't understand. This guy that calls Lee is just a random person that stumbled upon Grant's stuff, but also knew about the accident. Like, was he watching the accident? Like, I don't understand.
So Aaron just doesn't give a lot of details.
No, he gives no details.
And it's very confusing. And he talks about how the guy who found the phone was called to Christ. It's all very confusing. What's the most confusing?
Did he witness it? Is that why he was called to Christ?
So that's...
Okay, he didn't give the phone to Lee. Lee gave him Aaron's phone number. This is absurd.
Why?
Why not? Like, there are so many things wrong with this. For one, a random man walking by after the scene was cleared and found Grant's stuff. Like, but yet he was so touched by the accident that he's now a believer, and he's proclaiming this like this man's life is saved on Grant's behalf. Well, Grant's life was not saved. So who really gives a rip, you know?
Get it, girl.
This is ridiculous. Like, just, you are a bullshitter. Just shut up.
Okay, here's the thing. So it's bizarre. He says this guy who was walking by the ditch just happens to know Aaron's best friend, Lee.
Yeah, like what?
We don't have information on the connection of this man and his best friend, Lee. And how did he even know?
Because there wasn't even a wallet. It was his phone, his hat, and his goggles.
I wonder if if this guy is a mutual friend of Aaron and Lee's. And this guy may have known that they were mutual friends.
Or this guy was a reporter on this scene and found this stuff and grabbed it for Aaron.
The facility owner's father-in-law is the one who found Grant's
and
items.
Is now saved. Thank you, Grant, for the loss of your life so I may live.
Yes, he felt so moved. So he was there after, and that could be true. It's a bizarre thing to talk about at a service. I don't know. I mean, devil's advocate.
He was saying that Grant's life was not taken in vain. Like,
yes, like trying to reassure people. It's just very bizarre to talk about.
Grant died so someone else could live. Like,
Well, and he continues to talk about how his phone was recovered. It's like having a bunch of witnesses here where how the phone was recovered. It's like over the top explaining yourself. It just stinks. It stinks like poo-poo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it feels gross.
Yeah, it's not the best.
Do we have footage of Grant's mother as Aaron is speaking at the funeral?
No, but I'm sure
I'd be physically like biting my tongue, red face, like,
yeah,
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Well, that might not be appropriate to say.
Oh, I would want to kill him.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Huh. Come at me, bro.
You always say that. So, we are missing some details. This man could have known, he would know it was Aaron Solomon because he would know who was at the facility per his son-in-law, and all this action came about. And he could have called his father-in-law if he wasn't there. That would be a very distraught situation. Yeah. Somebody dies on your property. That's concerning, and it's traumatic.
Yeah.
Well, he could know Lee, and he could know that Lee is friends with Aaron through photos, or knowing that Lee's
or he knows him through Lee
is also an anchor, so he knew they would know each other. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is why this was all left out and people are questioning it. I'm wondering if there was more explicit discussion talking about all this, if a lot of the social media speculation would calm down, if they would just speak out.
I'm wondering if I stumbled upon someone's phone, hat, and goggles that just died on my family's property, what I would do. Like, would I pick it up and carry it around with me in my car until I could find the family? Or would I call the authorities and say, hey, you left some evidence here?
Well, and that is the question of why he did not turn it over to the authorities. What was the conversation that he had with Lee? Hey, I have your friend Aaron's things here. What should I do with them? Should I give them to the police? He reaches out to Aaron. What did we do with these? We don't know. We can speculate all day long, but there was that middleman that has not been interviewed that we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's very suspicious. Like, we're not investigative reporters.
No.
So we're doing our best to help a family get this solved.
So, okay, wait. The phone was shattered.
Well, I saw different reports that say per scene report, there was a phone and people were saying it wasn't shattered in the ditch when it was there, but then it was shattered when Aaron got it. And I don't know what's true because I was not able to corroborate that. I've had like 50 million tabs open, a ton of different conversations, and I'm wondering if that's just on me, and I'll own it, but I'm going to continue to look. If you know where that is, if anyone listening could send that to me and I can update it in our show notes. Okay. But I did read that, and I know I read that.
But my question is, did the Life 360 at some point stop working on it?
The last part of the Life 360 where it says he stopped was at the ditch. And then I guess after it left the ditch, it was driving around Gallatin.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, at what point did the 360, after Grant's death, at what point did that stop?
I don't know.
Because did it stop when the phone was shattered?
I don't know.
Or did it stop when the phone was out of service? Like,
what's also interesting is Angie Solomon was paying for the phone. It was on her phone service.
Yeah.
So why was she not given the phone? I don't know if it's because Angie didn't have legal custody of Grant, so the next of kin would legally be Aaron Solomon for the items. And I see you rolling your eyes, and I'm here with you because it is asinine, and I agree. And we have to talk about
you can still get information off the phone even if it's shattered.
And an iPhone, what about the iCloud?
Yeah.
What about that data?
Yeah.
I wonder if his girlfriend would have the passwords for that.
I mean, you can get a court order for that.
Yeah. Well, you would have to have a case first. So next time, we're going to talk about the connections that Aaron Solomon has to the governor of Tennessee, Bill Lee.
Well. What do we have here?
And their connection to the school and the church that Aaron Solomon sent his kids to. and some shady dealings of the courts. And then we'll also go into the abuse allegations on part 3. This has been an episode of True Crime and Headlines. I'm Jules.
I'm Joe.
Your matter and your butt
Looks amazing.
Oh, yeah. See you next week.
And Lee. LLC. My mama is a podcaster. Bye, too.